Okay, and we are going live once again. We're never going to get the background right. Let's just get used to it. We are consistently having technical difficulties. I don't know why I thought, hey, you know what we're going to do? You know, it's going to be good for learning YouTube and getting used to making videos. We're going to start going live with it, and we're going to add in a countdown and an intro and all this stuff. I'm going to figure it out one of these days. I'm basically talking to no one, so it doesn't really matter. I feel like experience is the best teacher, so that's what we're kind of jumping right into here. Yeah, got a lot of cool stuff to talk about this week. The untitled Vig Villain project live is now getting renamed, excitingly enough. I've decided we're going to call it Press Pause. The untitled didn't last long, but we're going to try out Press Pause. I like it, right? Because it's sort of, as the great philosopher poet Kendrick Lamar once said, there's levels to it. I'm not going to get into it. Just trust me, Press Pause is a brilliant name for a show where I talk about video game news from the previous week, which is kind of what I see this being. Just me sort of rambling my takes on stuff you've probably maybe come across or maybe haven't, depending on how much you sink your teeth into following game news like I do. Yeah, so jumping right into it, I want to go ahead and talk about what I've been playing recently. Last week I talked about playing Halo Season 3 and Nier Automata. Both of those kind of continue to be true. I've been really into Nier Automata, knocking that out. I've got the intro going over here that I recorded. It's such a fun game. It is really amazing. I kind of am kicking myself for having slept on it for so long. Like I mentioned last week, a buddy of mine had recommended it as just, one of his favorite games. Couldn't recommend it enough. I ended up picking this up, having a blast with it. Really cool hack and slash with sort of kind of a deep story, like kind of underpinning it. So I'm really enjoying that. I've been continuing on with Halo Infinite Season 3, kind of chipping away at that with friends, as well as playing some Rocket League recently, and a couple games of Fortnite. I feel like this month has really been, in addition to all the new games coming out, a lot of games are refreshing their live service element. You have Fortnite starting a new season. You had something new from Rocket League, Halo. We've got Sea of Thieves, I believe on the 16th that occurred. And then we've got, Forza at the end of the month with an expansion. So it just feels like a lot of games are updating right now. I'm sure I left some off the table that just aren't on the top of my list. But it's been fun dipping back into those. I'm a sucker for Rocket League. I'm very bad at it, but I really enjoy playing it. Friday nights I usually play with a group of guys, and we sort of knock through like a playlist, right? We'll play a little bit of the new Halo. We play some Modern Warfare, whether that's Warzone or multiplayer. We've been into Resurgence quite a bit since that came back. But we'll play Rocket League, and they got me to dip my toes back into Fortnite. And I don't really dislike Fortnite. I think it's an amazing game in a lot of ways, especially for what it's done, and you can't deny the impact it's had. But for me, I feel like ever since they added bots right before it kind of went over to Chapter 2, it kind of lost me a little bit. The game used to feel like a kind of a competitive shooter in a wacky world, and now it's become a wacky world and there is some shooting. Like, I think what bothered me the other day is we played 2 games. It was my first time back in a long time. They'd played a couple matches to warm up the day before. We played 2 games. We gotta win. And I don't know, it just didn't feel earned. It just felt like here's a victory. And those games, the wins used to feel so earned. And it's a cool game. I'm not going to deny it. Like, it's cool how they keep it updated, and there's always something new, and obviously people respond to it. But for me, a little bit, losing some of that kind of battle royale edge, that very competitive spirit, just made me less inclined to I'm never going to jump in there on my own anymore. But I don't mind getting in there with friends occasionally. But yeah, that's just kind of my rambling rant, way too long of what I've been playing, and I meant to talk about Nier Automata, but we're going to move on. I want to get into a few things. One thing kind of small I want to bring up that I really like. I just want to show you guys this. From the team that makes Enter the Gungeon. They're doing an arcade cabinet, and this thing looks so sweet. I want it so badly. I don't have a place in my apartment for it. I don't have the money to spend on a single arcade cabinet. But I hope it ends up coming somewhere near me, right? There's a few arcades and places like Dave and Buster's or whatever around here in my area. I'm hoping it ends up somewhere like that because I really do want to check this thing out. I've got like an arcade one up, one of the wall mounted ones, Pac-Man, just because I love the vibe of arcades. I still like to occasionally go, just kind of enjoy that aesthetic and some of those old games, and seeing it kind of still be alive with something like this from an indie team. It's just kind of interesting. It's very I don't know, like I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, if you're going to start seeing more of these, but I just kind of wanted to highlight this because that's really cool seeing a team that's making games like this kind of try their hand at doing an arcade cabinet, and it looks like they're actually putting it not only for individual use, but like I said, like it's looking like it's going into arcades, and they're trying to really make a little bit of a push with this. Very cool in my opinion. So yeah, if you've got the money and the space, take a look at this. Otherwise, fingers crossed it comes to an arcade near you if you got those still. Yeah, 6 months ago, a year ago, I might not have been as excited to see this, I think, but I've recently, like I said, kind of been getting more and more into going to physical arcades recently, and it's nostalgia, right? I know like the games are better now. Sitting at my house, like on my console or on on a PC. But I don't know, man. Going to these things with friends, having a drink or two, playing these games, really competing. I don't know. It's a blast. It's its own kind of thing. To see them really doing this, we're gonna move on. I'm gushing about an arcade cabinet I've never even played. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping I can see this soon. Now, on to some news I'm not going to gush about because it annoys the crap out of me. 2 articles from VGC. We're going to go to this one here. The Pokemon Company is hiring someone with deep knowledge of NFTs and the metaverse. And we see that sucks. I'm just going to say it. That sucks. That they're going to start in it. They might possibly look into NFT in your Pokemon. Don't do that. Okay. And then you come over here just on the same idea. They see a new PlayStation patent is covering potential cross-platform use and trading. Now, I kind of read through the patent. It's very dry, but it is kind of looking at how they could move art assets, NFTs, maybe between games, how players could trade them, that sort of thing. I still think that's a huge hurdle. And I think even looking at what they're talking about as far as moving them, you have to have the artist buy-in, right? You're going to have game developers buy in to that NFT ecosystem, right? Because you can't just make an art asset and then move it to any game you want. Games are built on different engines. They're built where, the objects are different sizes. They have different properties. You literally would have to get game devs to devote people and resources to making sure all these random art assets could fit in their game and work in their game. And if an NFT is like a gun or something, why would they want that being used in their game when they're probably trying to sell you the weapon skin of the gun for their game? Like, it's a mess. And I just want to say, PlayStation, Pokemon Company, don't do this. Please, I'm begging you, do not do this. I thought last year we all kind of realized NFT sucked. A lot of companies announced NFT projects and then kind of walked them back. But recently Square Enix is like, hey, we're going ahead with this Symbiogenesis game, which looks terrible. And now PlayStation's doing patent. Hopefully this just stays in patent land and they're just like, hey, just in case, put a patent on it. But I don't know, the fact that they're looking at this, that Pokemon is looking for somebody to shepherd them through NFT land. Because if you come over here, they're talking about, I clicked on the LinkedIn earlier, but I'm not going to do that now. But they were just talking about, we want someone with like Web3 and metaverse stuff and blah, blah, blah. And just don't do this. Don't do this. All right. I know Dr. Disrespect is dropping this game Dead Drop, and it's maybe going to have NFTs in an extraction shooter, which is, I don't know, maybe they haven't thought it through or they just really want money. But the idea of adding real world money to a first person shooter that's an extraction shooter, like it's going to be like Escape from Tarkov, right? They want to add real world money to this. Oh, you're trying to extract an $100,000 item was the example he gave on Twitter. And I think he rightfully got clowned on it because there are already so many cheaters in online competitive games. Now you're going to add real world value, like true real world value, not just the idea of like, oh, if I cheat and look good, maybe my Twitch stream gets more views or my friends think I'm cool. You're going to add like people's salaries, multi-year salaries to these items. It's just going to be cheaters. It's going to be nothing but cheaters trying to extract this stuff. It's just wild. I thought we'd slayed this or slew this dragon. Slew this dragon last year, and game companies had walked back the NFT stuff. They're pushing ahead again. Look, I don't want to get into cryptocurrency stuff or say there's no use for crypto. I think there is potentially some very interesting things that could be done with decentralization of currencies and kind of crypto stuff. But NFTs is not one of those interesting things that could be done. NFTs are a scam. There is nothing that an NFT can do that can't already be done. All you have to do is look at the skins in CSGO and how those are traded for real money. They don't need to be on the blockchain. You don't need it. And the idea that a bunch of game companies and developers are going to do all of this development work so you can pass around NFTs through their work, right? So you can go buy this character over here and run it through every game you want to run it through and never need to buy from them. It's asinine. They're not going to do it. NFTs are not going to take off. They're not going to be a thing. It has nothing to do with whether or not crypto is going to be relevant. But I'm telling you, NFTs are the worst idea I've ever heard. Okay, moving on from that, I got a little ranty. Let's go over a little bit of like this Microsoft ABK stuff. I want to jump in here. Yeah, I skipped something we're going to cut back to, but I do just want to touch on this because some interesting things got announced. Microsoft signed another 10-year agreement, which I guess 10 has become their magic number of years. 10 years. Everybody's getting 10 years from us, which is that's such a long time. That's such a long time frame to make a commitment in tech, right? Especially in software, something as dynamic as gaming. It's a long time. But basically, they made a group with Boosteroid, which is a software dev team out of Ukraine. This is a PR release from Microsoft's own site. Basically, Boosteroid is the largest independent cloud gaming provider. They have 4 million subscribers, I think. Microsoft made a deal with them to bring Call of Duty, as well as games from Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, and Activision, playable on cloud gaming through Boosteroid, right? So to use Boosteroid, you would still have to buy the game somewhere, but you'd be able to cloud stream it here. They made a similar deal with a company called, and let me double check I don't mispronounce this, Ubitus. Now, interestingly, Microsoft, I couldn't find a Microsoft press release for this one. And when I went to gamesindustry.biz, which is normally a great website to go find this stuff, even they didn't seem to have any sort of press release up. They just kind of linked to a tweet from Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, CEO of Microsoft Gaming or whatever his new title is. But yeah, he mentions, hey, we've made this deal with Ubitus, which is a company out of Japan. They do streaming, but what's interesting about them is it's not just straight to customer streaming. I believe that is an option for them, but they also do the, the cloud ports, I guess you'd call them, cloud ports for Nintendo Switch. So things like games like Control or like Kingdom Hearts 3, I believe, those were ported over through Ubitus. So it could be a relationship where Microsoft is using them for further cloud ports of other games. I think like everyone else, when Microsoft first announced they were going to bring Call of Duty to Switch, we all kind of assumed it was going to be a cloud option. Microsoft had argued though in response to the UK's remedies that no, we're gonna get Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 running natively on the Switch. So that does make you wonder if like, well, one, can they do that? Is that going to be worthwhile? But also, will they need to continue using maybe like a company like Ubitus for cloud ports? Either way, it's interesting that Microsoft is making these deals. They're one by one kind of signing off all these agreements and contracts just to show regulators that, hey, we're not going to withhold Call of Duty. We're going to give everybody 10 years of Call of Duty to kind of come up with solutions, or maybe we renegotiate, right? Because I don't think the 10 years, don't take that as a hard cutoff. Like after 10 years, Microsoft is going to pull Call of Duty away from everybody. They very much could do that. But also sometimes a number in a contract is just a number in a contract, because you're never going to sign something in perpetuity. You're never going to say, hey, we're going to do this to you we're going to do this for you forever, right? Not going to happen. I think the 10 years is actually a very generous term length that they're offering. And again, I've said this since the beginning. If you go back in my non-live video, but from a year ago when this acquisition first got announced, I said I think Microsoft is gonna make whatever deal they need to with consoles and kind of the traditional gaming space. The goal is not to rip away Call of Duty, or this move here is not about dominating or destroying players in console or PC. I think this acquisition for them really is about mobile, and it's about them creating an independent Play Store to go against Google's store and Apple Store. That's where they see the money. And when they talk about 3 billion gamers, right? Xbox is always saying there's 3 billion gamers. We want to try to reach them. Those are mobile gamers. They're not going after PlayStation gamers at any cost. The way you get to 1 billion gamers is you attract the mobile audience. You attract people on their phones. You attract people who just want to play on their TV. You attract casuals. And so that's what they're going after. And I do think, people want to separate Call of Duty and mobile. You really can't separate those things, because Call of Duty Mobile had 650 million downloads. I believe it made $1 billion annually in 21 or 22. I got to check the math. Don't quote me, but it makes billions, and it does have 650 million downloads. That's huge. They don't want to mess with that, right? They want Call of Duty Mobile. They're launching a Warzone Mobile. They want Diablo Immortal. They want Candy Crush. It's all tied together. And yes, they do want like actually Call of Duty, right? It's part of the package, right? But I think that portion of the package, sort of the console games, is very much about, let's get our money back. Let's add something to Game Pass. Let's make it strong for everybody. But I do think the big push and what they're going to use ABK for is the hundreds of millions of people they're going to be able to reach on Google and Apple, because they're not making deals with Apple. They're not making these 10-year contracts with Google. I think it's very likely we see Microsoft starting to pull some of these mobile games away from Apple and Google Store, make it available through the cloud, right? You can do the little web store. You can do the little web app for what everyone's doing for Game Pass now. You can get access to these things for a lot cheaper, because I think that's really the strength of the potential, the Game Pass family plan we've heard of. Because you can almost like see the commercial already happening, right? Just imagine a commercial for the Game Pass family plan, and it's just going to be, Microsoft showing you, a kid in his room, he's playing Call of Duty on his PC, camera pans down, dad's on the couch on the TV on like an Xbox Series S playing, Starfield. You pan over, mom's playing Candy Crush on her phone. Sisters on the Series X playing something. I ran out of game ideas. That's how you get somebody with the family plan, right? You have like, okay, we're gonna do mobile, console, PC. It's all together. We can get this family plan, and everybody can make use of it, right? Even if you're not a console or PC gamer, maybe there's mobile games you play, right? Because there's way more mobile gamers, and I think that reality is something that Xbox is looking at with this deal. And I hate to hear it. Part of me is so nervous about it, because you're like, oh man, what are they going to do? Like, they're going to focus on mobile. I don't know. I think it's inevitable. I think all game companies are heading in this direction, but there's a part of me as a traditional gamer who likes, playing on my TV or playing on a computer. Like, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how they do it, because I think when you look at like how Apple and Google have done their stores and what mobile gaming currently is and how people currently view mobile, that ain't it. That's not what people want as like traditional gamers. But so I do think it's kind of important that we see how these companies move into that space, and when they get it right, maybe we support that. I don't know, because the kind of thing I want to close out with, and something I've been thinking about and kind of want to touch on, is like, why is there such a difference between mobile and handheld? Because I think about, as a kid, having a Game Boy Color, loving the hell out of the Game Boy, playing it in the car, playing it at grandma's, taking it to school, getting it confiscated because I was playing it under the desk. Like, I loved that thing. And then, I had, I guess more recently, like you think like a 3DS, you think the Nintendo Switch. People like handheld gaming, but they don't like mobile. like most traditional console people be like, yeah, I liked my PSP Vita or PSP or my Vita. I liked my Game Boy, but there's no love for mobile. And I think obviously that's well and good. That's fair. There is a divide, right? And a lot of it's in gameplay mechanics, the structure of it, how you pay for things, all the in-app purchase bullshit that we see in mobile. It sucks. But I do think there are a lot of interesting strides, especially recently, that we're seeing that are different and could be something else. What first kind of got me thinking about handheld and mobile is when Octopath Traveler 2, when the demo dropped for that, I was definitely going to get it on Switch because I got the first one on Switch. But I downloaded the demo on my PS5 and on my Nintendo, and I played through them. And I got to say, like, the 60 frames per second, the 4K on the PS5 really sold me. And I still was thinking, oh, I play handheld in bed. I'm gonna want it on the Switch. I thought, hey, I'm gonna try out PS5 remote play. I haven't tried it out in a long time. I have the backbone. I've got this thing, which I originally got to do like some xCloud stuff and to try Apple Arcade. And this is pretty cool. Snap it on my phone. The buttons are wrong. Obviously, it's the AB. It's ABXY. It's designed for an Xbox, but I don't need someone to tell me where triangle or square are. It's fine. I got Octopath 2 going on that thing, and I was sold. I was like, I'm gonna buy it there. I can get the best experience on the TV, and then I can also play it in bed on the go. And that got me kind of really considering and thinking about what's the deal with mobile versus handheld. A while back, I tried Apple Arcade for a bit when they offered it. They offer like a free 3-month trial. Did that for a bit, ended up paying for a couple months, found some really cool games on there. And surprisingly, there are a lot of games that you also see on console on there, especially like indies, right? Like things like The Last Campfire, The Pathless, that Samurai Jack game, Gris, some others. Dead Cells is on Apple Arcade now, as well as some interesting exclusives. I can't think of the name now. I should have done my homework and written it down here, but there was a game from Platinum that was a kind of a hack and slash mixed with, you would capture these creatures. So it was almost like a hack and slash with Pokemon. It was interesting, really cool watercolor art style, in kind of comic booky. In addition, obviously Fantasian from Mistwalker, which to me is like the game on Apple Arcade that I can't get over. I saw recently, IGN had an article where they were discussing with him and the creator of Castlevania, and that came up, Fantasian, and he talked about maybe wanting to see it ported to PC is what he mentioned. Which I'd take at this point. I'll get that on Steam if I can, but I'd love to have that on console. That game's fantastic, and seeing Apple Arcade kind of do like a $5 a month subscription and give you some really cool games on mobile that don't have like the dreaded microtransactions has been really interesting. But there are games on there you can definitely see that they were designed for microtransactions and be kind of predatory, and they pulled that out to put them on Apple Arcade. And I played this game Grindstone. I got so into Grindstone for a few days when I played it. Like, I got addicted. It's a really, really cool game. At first, you think it's like just a brick breaker, and it is, but it's got these very interesting layers of strategy. It's great art style, like the framework they set it in, and the way the game plays out, and the skills you have. It was a ton of fun. I actually think there is a port now for the Nintendo Switch. If you hate mobile gaming, you won't even try it, I do recommend maybe checking out Grindstone on Switch. I love this game, got hopelessly addicted to it, but thinking about the fact that it could have had in-app purchases, that would have sucked so hard. And beyond Apple Arcade, recently, I got an iPhone 14 Pro recently, and that has also kind of got the juices flowing as far as thinking about mobile gaming and handheld and where it's at, and trying out what Netflix is doing with gaming. Now you can sign in you can download the games individually. They're like only for Netflix, so you have to sign in with your Netflix account. But they're getting games like Oxenfree, and Moonlighter, and a couple other kind of pretty cool indies. They got, you know what? Let me just check my phone. I got it right here. I can pull it up and tell you what I downloaded recently. Yeah, so they've got Into the Breach, which is an amazing tactical game. I sunk a bunch of hours into on the Switch. They've got that on there now, and they've got one called High Water, which is an indie that had caught my eye at some Steam Next showcase, I think. I know it's on Steam as well, but I downloaded that. I can't wait to get into that. It's something that had caught my eye as maybe like a cool sort of game. But yeah, they've got a few games on there that are very interesting. Obviously, the Apple App Store has some legitimate real games you can pay for. Things like old Grand Theft Autos, like Far, Lone Sales, things like that, some real games. And then you've got, in addition to remote play, you do have xCloud if you have Game Pass Ultimate. And that's been really interesting, especially with the Backbone playing games. One of the reasons I was initially very disappointed Octopath didn't end up on the Series X is I was thinking I might try it out on the Backbone and see how that goes. Because I do think, even with latency, cloud is perfect for like turn-based games or things that are move a little slower. I played some Halo Infinite campaign on this. It was cool. It's workable. I don't love the small sticks for trying to do like a shooter. I also would not try multiplayer. I did try multiplayer, and I could tell all of a sudden there was latency, like really bad the last time I tried it, where suddenly like I would move to go right and it would take half a second before the gun even started to shift. So didn't love that. Did not love that at all. But yeah, it's just kind of got me thinking about all this stuff, right? I don't know, it sucks, right? Because this should be a Game Boy. Like this could very easily be a Game Boy. And it's not. It's not. We all know it has mobile games. It doesn't have handheld games. It has mobile games. But it would be so awesome if it had handheld games. And obviously that's just a mindset thing, right? That's just a label we put on it because we understand these games are different. Mobile is in-app purchases and kind of predatory and simple gameplay and touch controls only, and it kind of sucks. Handheld is everything you're nostalgic about, plus with stuff on the Switch, plus, I mean, it's just, you know what I'm talking about if you made it this far into the video. Handheld gaming should be on your phone. These things should be Game Boys, and they're not, and that sucks. And I do wonder a little bit if all of the cloud gaming stuff that's coming from all these different companies, the remote play we're seeing from like Steam and PlayStation and Xbox, and the cloud stuff we're seeing from Microsoft with xCloud, if that's not going to finally make these handheld. I think it's interesting, right? Because my fear is that we end up with mobile games here on the TV and mobile games on the computer. Because that could very easily happen when you look at the numbers of gamers, and as these worlds kind of combine, it could very easily end up being just mobile gaming out the ass, and that would suck. So I'm very hopeful that we end up going more towards handheld gaming, if that kind of long rant makes sense. But that's my hope there. So just something kind of interesting. And now, like I said, I skipped a story. I want to circle back to it. This is just sort of an interesting conjecture, and this is going to be, we're getting into the world of pure speculation here. I want to talk about what's next for Nintendo. All right. I think you're seeing a lot of people, obviously people have been talking every 6 months. There's a new rumor of like Nintendo Switch Pro, which I don't think is ever happening. I don't see why they would do that or what the reasoning would be, especially at this point. But Doug Bowser gave an interview to AP News Associated Press, and it was a lot of fluff, right? Talking about the new Nintendo world. And obviously he's not going to tell anybody about any consoles, but the one thing he got asked at the end that I thought was interesting was, let me see if I can find it. And let's actually go over to Chrome real fast, right? Let's get over here. And this last question, what's the next big thing in gaming? The metaverse, AI, what else? His answer, I thought, especially the first few sentences, was very interesting. I think what you'll see with gaming is that we'll continue to see new technologies come into play that will allow us to expand the number of players that come in. As we think about technology, the most important thing is we think about how it will improve the gameplay experience. It's not technology for technology's sake. Will it really create this experience that is immersive, that creates smiles? We lead with that, and then we see what technology can support that. So that's from Doug Bowser, head of Nintendo of America. And that, I want to circle back to that first sentence. What you'll see with gaming is that we'll continue to see new technologies come into play that will allow us to expand the number of players that come in. Now, I think, yeah, he's possibly talking about cloud. I think he's possibly talking about phones. And this is all pure speculation and could totally be wrong, but I was talking with a buddy the other day about this, and I kind of pitched him this idea of like, I think Nintendo's in a very interesting spot, right? Coming off the Wii U, they launched the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch is a hybrid console, but really it's handheld, and you can dock it and play these games on your TV. And it did a lot of interesting things for Nintendo, I'm sure you're well aware of. One of the interesting things that did, though, was it combined their dev teams and dev resources, right? Your people focus on handheld, people focus on console games. They're all making games for the same system now. And it also brought Nintendo some crazy popularity, right? They're the second best-selling console now. Home console, I think third best when you added handhelds. But I do think Nintendo's in an interesting point in that when they launched the the Switch back in 2017, cloud streaming and gaming with portability was in a very different place. All right, now you have things like xCloud, things like Boosteroid and Ubitus we mentioned earlier. You have a lot of kind of high-end niche handhelds and emulators, you know, things like AN Neo and all that. You have the Steam Deck from Valve, and you have remote play from, you know, PlayStation, Steam, Xbox, all that. You have all the landscape is totally different. You have phones that can do so much, right? I think they're in an interesting spot where do we do another portable? And if you look at what the Steam Deck did, does Nintendo kind of hold themselves back again where they're not going to get into 4K? They're not going to get into 60 FPS. They're going to kind of really focus on handheld, even as handheld gets more competitive, right? Because you're seeing cloud come in, you're seeing all these things. So I'm kind of curious what Nintendo's going to do. And one thing I'm wondering when he says we'll continue to see new tech come into play that will allow us to expand the number of players that come in, I'm wondering if cloud doesn't become a thing where Nintendo does start allowing you to remote play or cast out. Because I think it could be very interesting if Nintendo really comes up with something kind of beefy, like a beefier home console that you can then remote cast to your phones. And not only your phones, what if Nintendo came out with a beefier console, right? This is the new console, but you can remote cast it to your Switch or your Switch Lite. So all your games that worked on the Switch, they still work on this device. It's still a reason to have it. And you might even want to buy a Switch Lite because now you can buy this new console that's beefy, that does 4K, that does 60 FPS, and you can cast it to your older Switch Lite or your older Switch and still play those things on that device, right? But it allows them to kind of make the upgrade, get into higher resolutions, higher graphics. Because I do think last gen for the Switch, it really didn't matter not having 4K. They were fine at 1080. But I think at the beginning of this, when they make this Switch, which is likely going to be 24 or 25, 4K is much more prevalent. If you go into a big box store, at least here in America, that's what you're mainly seeing on the shelves is 4K TVs. More and more people are going to be playing off those. You're seeing 1440 and 4K monitors. 60 FPS is becoming much more of a standard for games across systems. That's what a lot of people are wanting, and I'm wondering, where does Nintendo end up with this stuff? What's it going to look like? So, yeah, I do think it's interesting what we're going to see from them. But I don't know. That's just, like I said, pure speculation. Me just sort of making stuff up and taking a guess at where I think things are going to go. So we'll see. We will see. That's kind of it for me this week. I think we're about roughly the same time, maybe a little shorter than last week, which is a little long for me. I don't know why I thought maybe I could go short on a live video or what the point is there. But like I said last time, we're still figuring this out. Right now, I'm doing sort of Sunday, late afternoons, early evening. Don't know for sure that'll stick. Really trying to find like when's the best time in the week. I want to touch these things and how I build up the news. I don't even know if weekly makes sense, right? Because I do know that news is moving very quickly. So if you do watch this and you have thoughts or any opinions or any feedback, go ahead, please. I'd love to hear it, really. And if you made it this far, please subscribe. Please like the video. Comment if you feel like it. But that's really it for me today. Thank you for tuning in to Press Pause with Vig Villain, and I will see you next week.